While businesses build their bench, we need to build the bench in state government. As many of you know, the recruitment and retention of state employees has been a severe problem for our state. And while we have made considerable advancements like wage increases, deferred compensation, professional development opportunities, more is needed. Supporting our state workers means supporting the people of Missouri, and we are not done yet. This year, as part of our supplemental budget, we're requesting an immediate 8.7% cost of living increase for our state employees. For any
We knew it was coming because the governor tipped off Stephanie Bell, John Marsh, and Brian Houseworth a couple of weeks ago prior to the prayer breakfast. How did John, you remember exactly how he worded that / didn't word that on your guys' show that day?
Mm-hmm. I think that was the exact word.
They are going to be pleased. He broke that here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Stephanie Bell, John Marsh, Brian Houseworth a couple of weeks ago. And I'm wondering, so pay raise for state employees. I think one of the biggest takeaways, you look at the number of state employees just in Cole County, according to the Jefferson City Chamber of Commerce, roughly 14,200 state employees in So you think about that. That is huge, not just for the state employees. And again, I get it. I know probably doesn't cover the what's happened since Joe's been president. I understand that, but still, that's a huge deal. More money, I guess, going into the economy. This is pretty big.
It is huge. And, if you look at the coverage around the state, or the state of the state, Kansas City, St. Louis, Post-Dispatch, they all focus on different things. In mid-Missouri, without question, state employee pay is the biggest thing that is on the minds. Doesn't matter who the governor is. This is the biggest one we have seen in our lifetime, at least in my lifetime. And to your point, there's one other thing we absolutely have to mention here. Not only, Brandon, is state government the largest employer in Jefferson City, nothing even comes close. It was 14,000. The hospitals each employ about 1,000 or so. The school district is a big employer.
Lincoln University employs quite a few.
Exactly. And then you've got the, Hitachi and stuff. And no offense to any of those. Those are all great employers. But the reality is nothing compares to the state. And that is a company town. And there's no doubt.
And growing up, that's just that, growing up in Jeff City, that was just part of it. Everyone worked for the state. My dad worked for the state. Both of Chris's parents work for the state. Currently, his sister, his brother, my sister-in-law, they all work for the state. And, it matters.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we did. Absolutely. And it is a big deal. And I'll tell you the thing too, and Brandon and I were watching and listening to the speech as well. I think what was significant, the Republicans jumped up, Rudy Veit, and I noticed several others, but I watched the reaction of the Democrats, and they jumped out of their chairs to applaud the governor on this pay raise. That tells me this is a slam dunk.
Incidentally, the speech from the time Governor Parson started talking until he was done, right about 52 minutes. Just for the heck of it, is probably an incredible time waster. I went through the entire speech, and I edited out all of the applause. About 35 minutes.
Wow, that's a lot of applause. And there was a lot of pomp and circumstance at the very beginning as well.
Yeah, so from the time the governor started speaking, it was about 52 minutes to take out the applause, 35 minutes. It took me about an hour so I could bring 20 minutes worth of info here to the show. I'm regretting now that I ever did that.
Did anybody fall off any stages or podiums?
No.
That's good.
Nothing like that.
I about fell out of my chair when I see a local headline this morning because this was maybe, I guess, kind of my take based on reaction from Democrats listening to the governor's speech. But one of the headlines from a local news outlet, as a matter of fact, KRCG, Democrats mostly support Governor Mike Parson's State of the State address.
I think that's accurate. Now, they don't agree with him on the tax cut position and stuff, but that's more of a philosophical issue. Crystal Quaid, I think if you look at her tweets, and she's certainly been critical of the governor for the last several years, but she has been pushing for a state employee pay raise. Peter Meredith as well. These issues here are bipartisan. In fact, the Democrats would like to see some of these numbers even go a little bit higher. I don't know that we'll get much higher than some of the numbers the governor gave, but I think that's significant. The tone of the governor's speech was very bipartisan. He did not bring up CRT, did not bring up Kim Gardner, some of the things that, he's not specifically brought up CRT. He's brought up Kim Gardner, though. I didn't hear anything really that was too controversial about what he said, but the fact that they have said that is significant. There still will be battles in the legislature, but I do think the governor's, just based on reaction, I think a lot of these things are going to pass pretty easily.
Yeah, I mean, what did Lieutenant Governor Kehoe say about veterans issues yesterday? You'd be crazy not to support it. And when you're talking about I-70, about infrastructure, about kids, about, everyday issues that affect, people who have been hurting the last year, about returning money to the people who earned it. You'd be crazy not to support some of this stuff, but it's nice to see the Democrats are standing behind the governor on some of these issues.
7:10. State Senator Travis Fitzwater is going to join us with a little bit of reaction on his part. We'll also, we've got some reaction from Democrat Senate Leader John Rizzo. I watched his reaction video that he put out for us, and he was kind of like, yeah. Which was... I got a lot of money in the bank account right now. Am I going to have money in my bank account to continue to pay for some of these cool things a couple of years down the road?
These are one-time. This is a generational investment. These are not ongoing programs. So, no, it's a fair question. I know a lot of our audience is probably asking that. But I said something yesterday on the Randy Tobler show, Brandon. You had some great analysis, too. I enjoyed hearing you. But I pointed out, if this were a Democratic governor that had stood at that podium and called for some of these things before a Republican legislature, I'm not sure they go through. Parson has political capital. He's going to spend it, and it's $56 million to expand pre-kindergarten options to all low-income Missouri children. That is something we have just heard that would have been pie in the sky a few years ago.
Another one of my big takeaways, besides specific things he mentioned, I think overall, and I'm guilty of this too, will get a job. And I'll use a stereotypical, let's say, a single parent. Okay, I can get a job. I got a job, but now I got to find daycare. So if I can even find daycare right now, I'm going to spend almost half my salary in paying for daycare. And I think offering some help for parents and grandparents there, because I don't always think about, what do I get a job, go do this, go do that. Okay. Or I can work from home. Well, guess what? I live in rural northeast Missouri. Right. Our broadband coverage ain't so good up here. Some of that stuff I think was incredibly important as a whole. This, which was bigger, the state employee raise or this?
This year, we are requesting $859 million, the largest investment in decades, to widen and rebuild I-70 corridor and take the first steps in adding a third lane across our state.
I could hear people from Columbia cheering from Columbia. I mean, that is huge for mid-Missouri.
Well, and Matt McCormick hinted at this last week in the Ready, and you caught it too when we had the sound bites. I think Bill Eigel jumped ahead of the governor a little bit on this. Eigel's got a proposal for a 4-lane, but if you look at Eigel's proposal in this one, they both tap into funding. Now, Eigel's plan was $8 billion. The governor says we can get it done with $900 million. This is big. And then the governor said something last night to Chris Trevino on the Tiger basketball broadcast, the radio. He said that project would start here in Columbia, move off to the east or west, but it would start here. And he did not say that yesterday during the speech. So huge impact. We're talking about hundreds of jobs around here.
Governor Parson at last night's incredible game by Mizzou last night, 79-76, close call. Guess who else was at Mizzou's basketball game last night with the governor and all these other folks? One Miss Stephanie Bell. Good morning, Stephanie.
And I saw cousin Andy taking notes for the game. And I was there with Dr. Ashley Immel, who sometimes is on this show and on the Tobler show.
There's Mr. Brian Houseworth.
It's good to see you. And Sharon Winton was also introduced yesterday. That was huge.
Yeah, I was in tears over that.
That was big.
She was our daycare provider, and I get emotional talking about it. But when I went to find a daycare for my daughter or for my son, first of all, I started asking around town. And everyone said the same name came out of everybody's mouth. And a lot of state employees know her because her daycare used to be across from Patty Malone's right there in downtown, so that she's provided a valuable service. And for us, it wasn't an option not to go there. So seeing her recognized, and they even some of the kids from the daycare came out at the end of the speech. It was a beautiful moment.
There were a lot of tears in that audience.
Oh, I'm sure.
And some of the lawmakers, too.
Overall, my bottom line, even if I cut through my partisan BS, I thought really important stuff happened. Marcia, in your mind, biggest takeaway? I think I'm going to bypass betting Hannah's salary. I would bet $1 million.
God.
I would bet $1 million. Oh, and I had one of my big questions was, hey, the new bridges at Rocheport? Those were already designed to handle 3 lanes, right? Because they're not building a new bridge and then going, oh, crap, now we got to expand it another lane. We were told that, yes, Rocheport bridges are already designed to handle three lanes. I would bet $1 million, maybe, that what happened in the State of the State yesterday from our governor, probably one of the most, what they want to do, the most impact, Mid-Missouri as a whole, state employee pay raises and I-70. In recent memory, I cannot think of anything that has had more impact, not just on the state, but on us, where we live as a whole.
Yeah, I think Brian kind of said something like generational impact. If those two projects get done, it will be massive for Mid-Missouri for years to come.
Welcome into Wake Up Mid-Missouri, 93.9 The Eagle, 104.5 News Radio 950 KWOS. Getting ready for the daily DC Rundown. We go from
They're not just donating money to the Biden Center for Diplomacy, to Hunter's shady business dealings, and now we believe to Hunter's artwork that's going to anonymous buyers in China. They're not just doing this for charity. They're doing this because they want to get a return on their investment. That poses a national security risk.
So when Representative James Comer from Kentucky says he is referring to China and the Biden ties, and you start looking at these classified documents that the President of the United States had in his possession that we know at least some of the documents had to do with Ukraine and Iran, just that we know of. We know the White House keeps lying to us and withholding information. Be stunning to see what else is in there potentially as it relates to China. Steph, getting us into today's Daily DC Rundown, has a little bit more on this.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen met with her Chinese counterpart. They talked about differences and preventing competition from becoming conflict. The meeting was 2.5 hours long. That's a long meeting. We got the readout. They did agree that they should focus on. They could agree that they should focus on climate change and working for developing countries in their clean energy transitions. We did find out that Yellen does plan to travel to China. China expressed concern over U.S. economic trade and technology policies, obviously designed to limit Chinese competition. But it came up in the State of the State a little bit last night. So I think the governor made some comments about, hey, we can't let them, on like tech and semiconductors. We have to be mindful as a state of our policies toward China.
Interesting. Yes, the World Economic Forum, Al Gore, as it relates to climate change and all that. Listen to him talking about the Inflation Reduction Act.
In my country, we passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which is primarily a climate act.
Oh, he said the quiet part out loud.
We know, and now he's saying after it's passed, oh, by the way, that thing that we pulled the wool over Americans' eyes, it was really just a climate change act.
Wow. All right. Yesterday, we also learned we learned that I think they're in Germany right now. A bunch of Ukrainian folks getting some training from the U.S. military. But we found out yesterday that U.S. and Ukraine top military chiefs met in person for the first time. So General Mark Milley was there. They didn't say where exactly they were meeting, except they were near the Ukraine-Poland border. Apparently, these two have been talking frequently since the conflict erupted. But my real question is, how are they? And they said, they're talking all the time. Are they texting? Are they on Zoom? What platform? What are those two guys? They pick up like a super top secret phone.
Are they Facebook messaging?
Right.
That's a good point. We're communicating. What does that mean? Is it like through Telegraph and stuff like that, or is it Facebook? Are they talking? Is it high-powered meetings behind closed doors?
But I thought this was really good. And so an Army Colonel, Dave Butler, commented on the face-to-face meeting, and he said it's important when you have two military professionals looking each other in the eye and talking about very important topic. There's a difference. And I do think there is when you get to sit down with someone face to face. And I think, we've had a lot of conflict, a lot of in politics and elsewhere. And I wonder how much of that is because so many people weren't sitting down face to face over the last couple of years. So I found that really profound. Also, the Supreme Court seemed sympathetic to a deaf student who sued his school for failing to provide adequate education. And I thought I think it's going to bring up school choice. And I'm glad to hear that.
Education, one of the big things covered in our state at the State Address yesterday, is going to impact us, our kids and grandkids. Travis Fitzwater, state senators here at 7:10. Coming up just a few minutes from now, did you hear what Corinne Jean, by the way, no classified documents uncovered overnight that we're aware of. Did you hear what Corinne Jean-Pierre called Kamala Harris?
This Sunday, the president will speak about the fight to secure women's fundamental right to reproductive health care in the face of these attacks. She will talk about what's at stake for millions of women across the country, and most importantly, the need for...
Hold up. The president, she said the president, and then she said, let me get this straight here.
This Sunday, the president will speak about the fight to
So this Sunday, the president...
secure women's fundamental right to reproductive health care in the face of these attacks. She will talk about what's...
She? So is she calling Joe Biden a she? Or you're right. And I only bring it up. Listen, we all have slip of the tongues.
Some of us more than others.
Some of us more than others. But I bring this up because more than once this has happened. And I'm gonna come up with my theory here. They are trying to, again, it's the Democrats. How tasty is this theory? They're trying to subliminally work in the idea of us getting used to the idea of President Kamala Harris. What do you think? Am I going out there a little bit? I believe it. It's happened.
No, I don't think you're. I don't think you're out there as far as you think you are.
Speaking of those two, as they soft launched, Kamala Harris's presidency. Did you see the video that Biden posted on Twitter of him ordering a cheeseburger for lunch?
No.
Yeah, it was a cool message of supporting small businesses, but it's just funny because it's him calling a restaurant. It's like, I'd like a bacon cheeseburger for lunch, please.
I'll be buying my 1967 Classic Collector's Edition Corvette to pick it up. Welcome to the show. Wake Up Mid-Missouri. John Marsh, producer Hannah Stephanie Bell, Brian Houseworth. My name is Branden Rathert. Coming up 7:10, State Senator Travis Fitzwater is going to be joining us. Reaction to the State of the State address. Have reached out to David Tyson Smith. Thought it'd be interesting to get a Democrat's point of view on what went down yesterday. There is a local headline that says, yeah, it seems like folks pretty much in agreement. We will highlight some audio. We got a hold of a video from the Democrat leader of here in Missouri, John Rizzo, and his take on it. We're going to highlight that for you at 7:10. Right now, I want to bring in former state rep, incredibly popular former state rep, Sara Walsh. So popular, people have been asking us, hey, so what is Sara Walsh doing now? Because she enjoyed some immense popularity, and I know she was my personal representative. I was her constituent. She helped me with a problem that was, oh my gosh, so I can vouch for her personally. People have been wanting to know what she's been up to. We'll get into that. But right now, Sara Walsh, welcome to the show. I want to ask you now, you're on the outside looking in, State of the State address, your mind, biggest takeaway from the State of the State yesterday.
Well, I'll tell you, Branden Rathert, and good morning, everyone, that honestly, when Branden was asking me what's my take on Stotts, I was thinking Star Trek original theme song. And so, what was going through my head was life, the final frontier. These are the voyages of pro-life America to boldly march for life with others that have gone before.
I like it. Good. Well, I'll give you some points there. We may even nominate you as one of our winners of the week tomorrow at 8:35. But generally favorable, you think?
Well, to be perfectly honest, I've been focused on preparing and prepping for traveling to the 50th Annual March for Life, which is going to be held this Friday in Washington, D.C. I began this new year in a new role as Director of Education and Development for Missouri Right to Life Education Fund. So looking forward to marching with hundreds of thousands of pro-life people from across the United States and around the world. And so that's really what has been, I've been packing, I've been prepping, and just so excited to be able to join them.
So when folks say, hey, whatever happened to Sara Walsh, we can say she is with Missouri Right to Life.
That is right. Yep, working on their education fund side, so not the lobby side. I will be on the education side, educating for life.
All right. And then, so you guys are leaving today. What are some of the highlights of the trip?
Well, so there's going to be a rally in Washington, D.C., and so Franklin Graham is going to be given the closing prayer there. There'll be many, many pro-life speakers that will be speaking. And then the March for Life, I am told it is the largest, longest-running peaceful protest in the history of the United States, and that Missouri's had buses going to the March for Life in Washington, D.C. since 1976. As your listeners know, sadly, even though Roe v. Wade is, overturned, and that decision says that there's no constitutionally guaranteed right to abortion, but that's been at the state's level. And so nationally, abortions are still well over 900,000 a year in America. And so education must continue to make abortion unthinkable and to transform society and culture to respect and protect all innocent human life and build a culture of life. And so we're going to be marching for life, being with other pro-lifers all around the nation and even the world. And so just so excited to do that. I've not been able to participate in the National March for Life yet in my life. And so this is a first time in my life for me to get to do this at the national level. Of course, I've been at the one in Missouri many times, but this is going to be so exciting to be able to participate.
And if somebody wants to get involved in some work that you're doing, where's the best place to send them?
MissouriLife.org. MissouriLife.org is Missouri Right to Life's website, and they can also reach out to me. Call the office there and get a hold of me, and can get them. There's lots of educational opportunities and volunteer opportunities and things like that on the education side.
All right, former State Rep Sara Walsh now with Missouri Right to Life on the way to D.C. Sara, thank you for joining us on Wake Up Mid-Missouri this morning.
It's always an honor.
All right, good to hear. She had some incredible popularity when she was serving as one of our state reps. And she was talking about peaceful protest in Atlanta. Protesters, for real. And I think of people like Maxine Waters, who had encouraged constituents to go out. And I think the word that these BLM protesters and people that like to march against the police, the word they like to use, it's another D word. The word of the week last week that started with the letter D, it was different. Yeah, but see, Joe Biden's classified, it's different than Trump. It's different. The other popular word that we hear is disrupt. So the disrupting is I say it's code speak for violence. Dysfunctional. In Atlanta, protesters are calling for violence against police. Officer-involved shooting, and of course, cops shot the guy because he was black. It wasn't because he was endangering the lives of others. They shot him because he's black, and that's what these people think. And I think they think that because they watch the news, they pay attention to the media, and they believe it. And then they get scared. Who was it yesterday? We were talking about the World Economic Forum, and we were highlighting some audio from somebody who said the youth, these younger people, they're terrified of climate change. And I consider anybody who's younger than me, I consider a kid.
Which, as you get older, that group gets larger.
I know. Like, damn, everybody's younger than I am anymore. That's why I like to spend so much time hanging out with John Marsh, because then I'm not.
I got humbled the other day because I was talking to someone. I'm like, they're like our age. And then I was like, wait, how old are you? And they were for sure 10 years younger than me. And I was like, okay,
ouch.
Maybe not.
Ouch.
Hannah, as a younger person, do you side with this guy from the World Economic Forum that says our younger people today are petrified of climate change?
Me personally, I'm not petrified, but do I see other people my age that are petrified? Yes.
Really?
They're
Yeah.
petrified of picking up the phone and making a phone call.
Okay, true. Right.
Man. But I think they're not, and it's something that they're fearing. It's not true. But it shows you the power. Again, I always go back to the way the national news outlets cover things. People, I saw it on the news. Joy Reid was talking about it. It must be true. And remember this, all of these people at this World Economic Forum, they're talking about climate change. And I love the audio from Al Gore. Remember the Inflation Reduction Act? Hannah, what didn't the Inflation Reduction Act do?
It did not reduce inflation.
And we all said, man, it's just climate stuff. It's climate stuff. It's climate stuff.
$369 billion, which will actually be much larger than that because the heavy lifting is done by tax credits.
Again, these tax credits, where people aren't choosing to buy electric vehicles. I would bet a week's worth of Hannah's salary on that one. They're not choosing.
That's your own salary. Come on.
But that's how confident I am. The majority of people that are buying these electric vehicles, I don't believe they're buying them because they want to, because the federal government, in effect, is paying them to do it. And then think about this: whenever all those leaders, Al Gore, do you think he's walking back from Europe here to the United States? How's he getting home? Getting on a big old jumbo jet, just like the rest of them. Oh, but carbon emissions, and don't do this, and don't do that.
I wonder whatever happened to Greta Thunberg.
She got busted the other day. She was, I don't know, busted, arrested, but I think in Germany there are people, these climate protesters who are spray painting works of art and doing all this crazy stuff. She was, I think, arrested. And again, national news outlet reported, oh, this young girl, Greta Thunberg, detained by police. Well, yeah, because she was impeding safety. Coming up, this is a pretty important story. Former state rep Chuck Basye. Not intentional that we would have two state reps on in a row, by the way. It just kind of worked out that way. Big national event happening with the Right to Life March that former state rep Sara Walsh is involved in. Chuck Basye, former state rep. I thought, pretty serious story in the first place that a former state rep, especially Chuck, who had a high position within the state legislature as it relates to education, running for the Columbia Public School Board. They said no because we have our own set of laws. Meanwhile, we have attorneys and Chuck Basye saying, yeah, we know you have your laws, but then there is state law. Which wins out? Well, Chuck Basye's filing lawsuit.
I think the school district, I'm not trying to sound cocky, I think they are afraid of me getting on the candidate platform because they know that I know things.
Chuck Basye, and I do not disagree with him there. And that, as a matter of fact, before he said that publicly on our news partner's television station, ABC 17, when I found out he was running for Columbia Public School Board, or a former state rep who had high positions in the state legislature when it comes to education, they are afraid of him. Absolutely, wouldn't even think twice about it. Tried to get onto the ballot to be a candidate for Columbia Public School District. And there were a couple of things that happened. I want to bring in State Rep Chuck Basye right now, because now, in effect, suing the school board. But the school board said, well, you didn't do it within this deadline. And then Chuck's camp is saying, well, but here's the state law. In effect, we don't care about what you think your rules are that you have created. Chuck, welcome to Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Do I have that wrong? Is that the synopsis of what's happening here?
That's pretty accurate, Brandon. The fact is that I decided to file after I communicated with some former candidates had run, very good people, and they assured me they weren't running. So this is Christmas Eve, and so I decided to go ahead and file. So that's when I discovered their December 22nd so-called deadline to let them know to get their permission to file, which is in contradiction with state law, and as a matter of fact, their procedure contradicts their own policy that they revised a little less than a year ago on Valentine's Day last year. So their own policy contradicts their procedure they used. And I did hire an attorney, Brent Hayden, and I think he's doing a phenomenal job. He electronically filed the suit last night, and it was early evening when it finally was accepted. I don't know how that procedure works, but anyway, he told me in a separate email that he is hoping for to get that in front of the court next Monday. So we'll see what happens.
And I think it may have been on the Gary Nolan show, maybe the Randy Tobler show. Tobler's here weekdays 4 to 6. One of them, Gary or Randy, had on Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft, and the Secretary of State, the guy who's in charge, in effect, of our elections and election laws. I got the impression, he didn't say these words, I got the impression like, yeah, this is a slam dunk. This is like a slam dunk you may have seen at the Mizzou-Arkansas game last night. This is an easy one. I'm guessing your attorney says the same thing. And I want to ask you in these comments, and I may have asked you this before, you said Columbia Public School District is afraid of you being on the board. I agree with that even before you said it. I had that exact same thought. That was my first thought. You said because they know the things that you know. What are some other things that you know? And by the way, the things that happen in the Columbia Pub, there really are. There's some bad things. And we've been lied to by the superintendent. We get very poor communications with the mouthpiece for the school district. But this is important as it relates to an election anywhere, not just in Columbia, when you have a local electioning body, in effect, saying, well, but we have these rules. We know what the state law says. We have these rules. What is it you know that you think Columbia Public School District is worried about?
Well, they're not being very transparent in a lot of realms. They fail to acknowledge that the majority of the students in the public school system, not just in Columbia, but across the state, are not proficient in some very key subject areas. So that's one thing. Columbia is performing very poorly in some very key areas, science and math and some others. And they never really talk about those poor test scores. And this has been happening well before COVID. I know some people have researched that, and they've been declining since around 2014, 2015, and they continue to decline. They're teaching the teachers on how to teach the critical race theory concepts. They hired an organization out of St. Louis, so I know about that, but they refuse to. I sent them a sunshine request. They want me to pay for the information. I think it should be public. They should have that out in front of the taxpayers and the parents to let us know how much they're paying that contract for and the contents of the material. Frankly, I have some of that material that they're putting in front of the teachers. Teachers are leaving in droves in public education in Missouri because they're being forced to teach stuff that, frankly, they think is not appropriate. And the other big issue facing our teachers is that discipline problems that lack support from the administrators, school boards, and such. So, I'm going to be very vocal. If I do get on this ballot, I intend to really highlight that. And I'm not going to dance around these issues, these feel-good issues that they're going to try and push at these forums. I'm going to tell it exactly like it is, and if people don't want to vote for me, that's fine.
Chuck, I got to run here. We're running out of time, but I've got a surefire way for you, I think, to get on the ballot. I'll deflect to my attorney friend from Ellinger Bell, Dean Peter Klumpke Jr. He is apparently he is still on the ballot, despite the fact announcing earlier this week he is not going to run in the school board race. And I appreciated his honesty. He says, you know what? I kind of didn't know what I was getting into. I appreciated the honesty, but that's Dean Peter Klumpke Jr. According to what I'm looking at, he would still be on the ballot. So you get your attorney, Hayden, to legally change your name to Dean Peter Klumpke Jr. Chuck, I got to go. We appreciate you joining us here on the show.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate y'all.
All right, you bet.
I love when you get so tickled with yourself. Like you think you're so clever.
I do. My mom told me one time, if you were half as amusing as you think you are. Democrat and Republican reaction to State of the State coming up at 7:10.
it's going to take some hard work over these next few months, especially with this Republican legislature, which in my opinion has become one of the most conservative legislatures in the country. I look forward to working with Governor Parson and any Republican or Democrat or anyone that has any good ideas to move Missouri forward, especially when it comes to taking care of our families in child care, teacher pay, making sure our schools are 5 days a week and not 4, and giving people a good quality education, providing a good job so that people can live and work and play in this great state that I love and you love, and that we all want to just work properly.
Following the State of the State yesterday by Governor Parson, Senate Democratic leader John Rizzo puts out that video, and my takeaway from the reaction, by the way, some impactful things in the speech, state worker raise just in Cole County, almost, Marsh, what, 15,000 state employees, roughly? 14, 15. By and far. And then you look at state employees in the rest of the state. That is huge, the money that would be pumped into the economy. The other thing, expanding I-70. Governor saying during the basketball game last night between Mizzou and Arkansas that Stephanie was actually at. Governor Parson telling us yesterday that I-70 widening project, guess where it would start?
Right here in Columbia.
Which, yeah, so impactful stuff. But I thought also interesting is there's a headline, local news outlet, KRCG, this morning that basically says, yeah, Democrats seem to be okay with the speech. And I'm thinking of this, and it seems John Rizzo's response there is, yeah, okay. And I'm thinking of that, what's that new statue that went up in Boston? It's supposed to be like the hug statue or a sculpture or something.
Yikes. And
it's supposed to be Martin Luther King and hugging somebody else, but it's just the arms. It is getting universal. Yeah. Like if the Proud Boys and BLM are in agreement on something, it's got to be bad. And I don't know.
And they spent millions of dollars on it, right?
Yeah. 14-year-old boy.
Wait, Brandon, is that the statue you were designing last year?
Here's what I said to Stephanie, and I don't even like saying this word.
Don't say the word.
Don't say it?
No.
All right. But I won't. Because I know there's been some references to it looks like a phallic symbol. I said it looked like a turd, somebody holding a turd. That's what it looks like. Because no. And that's too bad. Get the sentiment, but everybody is going, people might miss the message because you're going to have a bunch of 14-year-old Beavis and Buttheads standing around going, but I liken the reaction to that statue, kind of the reaction to the governor's State of the State. Like everybody seems to be like, yeah, So I want to bring in State Senator Travis Fitzwater. Represents Callaway, parts of Lincoln, Montgomery, Pike counties. Travis, welcome into Wake Up Mid-Missouri. We appreciate you joining us on 93.9 The Eagle and 104.5 News Radio, 950 KWOS. Which in your mind is bigger, the state employee raise, which, by the way, the governor said, I want it by March the 1st, okay, so that it'll show up in their paychecks on the 31st. Which is bigger, that or I-70 expansion in your mind?
Hey, friends, glad to be here with you. Thanks for including me. I think they're both big. You know, they're very different issues. You know, it impacts the tens of thousands of state employees. Obviously, the pay increase is a huge deal. It's something I've always pushed for because we've been so low on that scale. State employees deserve it. And in reality, the state workforce, the state departments are struggling just as much as local businesses on getting the professionals we need to run our state government. So, you know, I hope this is a way to attract more folks. The timeline is a little bit interesting. You know, creating a supplemental budget is not atypical in that timeline. From my experience in the legislature, it'll just be, you know, do the budget leaders in the House and Senate agree to that number? That will be interesting. But, you know, the Department of Mental Health up in Fulton with the Fulton State Hospital, they need workers. Across state government, we need workers. So I think it's a crucial step towards figuring out how we close that gap. And then I don't have to explain to anybody how important I-70 is.
Yeah, I think we could hear the cheers from up here in Mid-Mo about I-70. I guess what I'm looking for is what wasn't in the governor's state of I mean, someone I think likened it to the Oprah show. You get money and you get money and you get money. And we spoke with Representative Veet last night, and he said, there are some Republican lawmakers who are looking for an additional tax cut. That was not mentioned. But, having talked to your colleagues, was anyone disappointed? Was there something out there that someone said, you know what, I wish he would have included X?
Yeah, it was interesting because it was very much a budgetary speech, which is how these things typically go, because he's releasing his budget and kind of his priorities are shown through the budget. Afterwards, I just kind of joked, it's like, do we even have that much money? And we do. We have a lot of money. And I think the governor, to his credit, even though he's asked for a lot in this budget, and we have billions of dollars sitting in reserves, he did set aside money, especially in the education fund, for what we see as an upcoming recession that's going to really impact our state coffers. And so even though I think it was a speech that was endlessly asking for money, and it's a lot of money, I think there's also a pretty big buffer built in to ensure that we're prepared for any recession that's forthcoming. And I think with the amount of money we have available at this point in our budget, I think focusing it on infrastructure projects in particular, and not new programming across the board, even though there was a lot of new programming in his ask, but focusing a large chunk of it on infrastructure is a really smart and intelligent way to use these funds, because they're not ongoing programs. I-70's got to get done. I mean, that just has to happen. We've got to expand it from Columbia out to the cities in St. Louis and Kansas City. Wentzville, which is part of my district, is the fastest growing area of the state. We need to make I-70 6-lane, and this is a good start for that.
Yeah, and it's not just because we live here. It is an important national corridor. It stretches almost from east to almost all the way to the west. It's pretty impressive. Our guest this morning, State Senator Travis Fitzwater. Reaction to yesterday's State of the State speech on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Yeah, have I ever? I think I've worked on that issue probably more than anything in my political career, just because it's really fired up folks in Callaway County. And as far as Ameren, I'm not particularly privy to that one as much as I am the one in New Bloomfield and the one in North Callaway, and there's another one that potentially is considering Hatton. So a lot of projects, and that not to mention the project that Ameren's already planning out at their reform place at the nuclear plant. So you've got a lot of Callaway for some reason to be targeted. I think there's a lot of infrastructure that gets large units that are available to get your solar power onto the grid, and so that's why Callaway County is being targeted. But it's a lot of acreage being used in Callaway County or being planned to use in Callaway County on solar projects. So we just got to make sure that our folks are being protected in the midst of allowing these large arrays coming into Callaway County.
Senator, we appreciate you joining us live. The governor, obviously, a lot of positive things he focused on, and his message overall was positive. But there was at least one time in that speech where he talked about stuff that normally you don't hear a governor talk about at a dais like that. And he says that Missouri right now ranks 44th in the United States for our high maternal mortality rate. He called that embarrassing and absolutely unacceptable. And he said, if we can't get this right, we might as well pack our bags, let someone else occupy our seats. And he pounded the lectern for emphasis at least once there. I mean, he was really fired up when he said that. He's unveiled a $4 million plan to allow the health department to implement a new maternal mortality plan. Now, Paula Nicholson, our health director, is a constituent of yours. She lives in Fulton. The governor did not elaborate on what that plan is. So two-part question. A, do you know what the plan is? And B, is $4 million enough to address this issue?
Yeah, there's a couple big questions in there, but I think if you can't get fired up about protecting moms and kids, you shouldn't be down here, to be quite honest. We've got a lot of work to do in that space. In the foster care system and with adoptive children, we have one of the largest foster care systems in the country, and that needs to change. There's no reason in 2023 that we can't figure out how to protect our mothers after they birth their children. There's to be 44th in the nation is pretty frustrating, and we've got to figure that out. And I think it's a good start to start prioritizing budgetary items to figure out how we get there. And I think you pointed out in this speech, if I recall correctly, that if you interact with some of these low-income mothers at least one time and give them some resources, it helps. The mortality rate is not near as bad. I think like to the tune of 75% of those interactions can correct some of the problems we're seeing. And so, that's not a steep hill to climb if it just takes one interaction with low-income mother. That it's not going to be terribly expensive, but we've got to do it. We've got to prioritize things like that. We've got to protect kids. We've got to protect moms. And that's the other leg of the stool, being a pro-life legislator.
We've got about a minute, but I think this is a topic that you've spoken about before. Yesterday, we talked about that new FTC rule with non-competes. What are will there be any action in the State House on non-competes this year?
Probably not, because every time I've tried to bring it up, I've just hit such headwinds. It's just been next to impossible to get it any movement here in the legislature. All these lawyers over here. I don't know if we need any more lawyers in the Capitol, but I'm just kidding. It's great to have them, but it's a hairy issue on the legislative level. I hope the federal government does it. I think they're terrible for our economy, non-competes, and I think they ought to be banned. But it's been a hard slog here in the legislature to get any movement on that.
All right, Travis, now we've got 30 seconds. When you see Senate Minority Leader John Rizzo today, I have a favor to ask of you, but first I want to play a little bit of I want to play a little bit of his response to the state of the state yesterday.
It's going to take some hard work over these next few months, especially with this Republican legislature, which in my opinion has become one of the most conservative legislatures in the country.
Tell him, he said, it's become one of the most conservative legislatures in the country. Tell him, hey, Brandon and Stephanie at Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle and 104.5 News Radio 950 KWS. Tell Mr. Rizzo that we said, thanks for the compliment. We appreciate it. Anything that we can
pass it along.
Anything we can do for you, let us know.
Thanks.
All right, we'll see you. Coming up, we're going to be doing What's Hot with Hannah. What do you have for us, Hannah?
A Indiana Police Department is doing something pretty cool.
All right, I like these feel-good stories. Call me a sucker.
I call you worse.
I was trying to help you out, Hannah. Unfortunately, I'm keeping the streak alive. It's 7:25-ish, which means it's...
Well, it What's Hot with Hannah doesn't start until I announce the time. And
I think I'm on a 10-game winning streak.
It's 7:26.
Whoa.
I'm on a 10-game win streak, man.
What kills me, though, is all those years of me asking you to be on time didn't matter. One middle schooler from Blair Oaks says something, and by golly, you make a change.
She goes and shows you how you never know how you can affect people's lives. It could be a chance encounter, and the consequences can be long-lasting. And Travis Fitzwater, our state senator, he almost threw me off, man. He almost cost us the streak here on.
Yeah, because it's never your fault, right?
Well, okay, now every time you ask Travis a question, tell him, okay, Travis, we have 1 minute. Okay, Travis, 30 seconds. What about, okay, Travis, for real, 10 seconds. All right, what is hot with Hannah today?
I'm going to try to do this without hiccuping today. We'll see how it goes.
Yesterday was incredible. If you missed what happened yesterday during What's Hot with Hannah, wow, one of the greatest moments of the entire year so far on this show. 19 days into the year. You can go back.
The bar's a little low.
Right? You can always go to our websites, kwos.com and 939theeagle.com. Click Wake Up Mid-Missouri on demand. You can check out what happened on yesterday's show.
And speaking of that middle schooler from Blair Oaks, it's her dad's birthday today, so happy birthday to friend of Wake Up Mid-Missouri, Scott Fawn. He shares a birthday with Dolly Parton, which I'm really jealous of, so congratulations, Scott.
Why are we Stephanie's? I was trying to hide my giggle because I don't know why I thought that was funny, but Stephanie and John, you're giggling. Why are we finding it funny? Scott Fawn hosts the TV show.
It's a Dolly Parton.
Scott Fawn hosts the TV show This Week in Missouri Politics. He has the Missouri Times, very active in statewide politics. He's a barrel-chested dude. Okay.
No, but Dolly Parton...
No, seriously.
But
That's not where I was going with that, but
no.
okay.
But have you ever heard her interviews? They're hilarious because she just speaks her mind, and that's what I love about her.
Yeah, there we go.
And again, I go back. Something about a southern accent, man. It just makes me melt. Okay, where were we? What's hot with Hannah?
There is a police department from Bloomington, Indiana, that's making headlines for something really cool that they're starting in the month of February. They pulled over 2,500 people in 2022 for having some sort of bulb burnt out on their car, right? So a turn signal, tail light, headlight, whatever. Starting in February, instead of handing out tickets for those infractions, they're handing out vouchers for up to $250 to a couple local auto body shops in their area for people to go get it fixed instead of, getting a ticket for it. And I think that's really cool.
There may or may not be a light bulb in my cup holder, and I will not admit to how long it has been there.
That's not where it goes, Steph.
I just had a taillight out, and
Yeah.
so I spent a few days driving up and down 63 and 50 with only one turn signal. But
And I love that idea, by the way. I had actually spoke with a local mid-Missouri police chief about, hey, is there something we can do to help those folks that get pulled over for a tail light that we could help them? How about we collect money for these people that don't get their cars registered and they have those dealer temporary tags on for months
did I just step in something?
and months at a time? Coming up, there's a traffic law, actually, while we're on a traffic law being proposed in another state that I think we could all get on board on. We'll do that in 5 minutes.
Hey guys, it's Hannah. I just got home from the grocery store and I saw that my check engine light was on, and I jokingly told Brandon that he was bad luck because he's also been having car problems this week. And he told me that if you pop the hood of your car and look at the engine, then apparently the check engine light goes off because your car knows that you checked the engine.
I sound like such a little baby.
You were my dear sweet Hannah.
Did it work?
No, it didn't. I was a broke college kid, and I was willing to try any cheap fix. And I got duped.
So Hannah calls one, and again, man, she was busting her tail. She's going to school full time. She's part of Wake Up Mid-Missouri, and she calls one day, and I'm her last resort because if you need help with your car, you know who you don't call?
No, I was actually upset with you because your check engine light had come on, and you were giving me grief about it, and so I was like, "You jinxed me."
She said I jinxed, and she says, "Brett, can you help me? What do I do? I can't get a hold of my mom or my dad." And so I said, "Okay, what's going on?" She said, "Well, the check engine light is coming on." I'm like, "Oh, all you do," I said, "make sure your motor is running, make sure the check engine light comes on, then you go and you lift up the hood and you look,
You check the engine."
And
like a copy machine when it says there's like a feed and you open the door and you're like, there's nothing in there, and you close it and then it's like, all good. And you're like, I hate this thing.
And you shut the door.
No, that's not how cars work.
And the check engine light goes off because it knows you've checked the engine. And I bring this up because, Stephanie, I can help you out too. I'm great when it comes to cars.
Do you remember what happened literally the next day, though?
You wrecked on 63?
No.
Tire came off?
No, not that time.
You wrecked in California?
Yeah, and I totaled my car.
Oh, no.
I wasn't as concerned about the check engine light after that.
But the good part of that was the check engine light quit coming on anymore.
Well, it was still on, but it was telling me that my transmission was smushed.
John, you're more of a manly dude than I am. Can you help? Steph apparently doesn't understand how things work either. She's got her blinkers out, but she's got the bulb, but it's in her cup holder next to her cup of coffee.
Right.
I fell for that one time, too. Paula from Gaps Automotive had to call in and set me straight.
There's a lot of things you shouldn't trust me with.
I have learned that over the years.
Marriage advice.
And cars.
And math.
And math. And facts.
Fashion.
Shoes.
Hair care products. Welcome to the show. We are Wake Up Mid-Missouri. We appreciate you being here. There's Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
Mr. Brian Houseworth is here.
It's good to see you.
There's producer Hannah.
Good morning.
My name is Branden Rathert. Coming up 8:10, Randy Tobler is going to be joining us. More kind of highlights. I think really I keep saying the two big things from state to state is they are going to be impacting you. Widening of I-70. I will tell you, and maybe we can cover this real quick. We're getting some very consistent messaging from you this morning at 874-9390 and also on our Facebook page where you can watch the show. You can pull us up on YouTube on your smart TV. Maybe you're on a dry cleaner store and you got a TV there at the front desk and customers come in and catch a little bit of the local news. Everybody saying, hey, this stuff with I-70 being widened, that's really cool. But rural roads, we've had people, hey, but what about Highway 63? What about these other roads when you get out into like Randolph and Audrain counties, parts of Osage counties? What about money for just rural roads?
The governor did not really address the issue of rural roads, and hopefully we can get him. He's kind of on a tour right now. I talked to Kelly Jones. He'll be going out around the state talking about the state of the state, but it'd be good to get him on to talk about that because that is an issue. Now, he did talk about 250 bridges. Again, that's kind of an old, I shouldn't say an old program, but they're working on that right now. And he talked about these interchanges. The only thing really to what you're talking about, Brandon, is the intersections that are near rail crossings. $35 million to basically clear those up and improve those, $35 to $50 million. But he did not give a lot of specifics on the roads you're talking about. And some of those roads are in bad shape.
Yeah, even among Missouri Democrats, I mean, it's a lot of rah-rah yesterday and a lot of agreement. But two things I've heard. So the first, we've heard a lot today about rural roads. And then the other thing was yesterday on the Tobler show about, hey, the state employee raise is great, but there are certain state departments that don't have access to those raises, and because they have their dedicated funding. And I think somebody brought up conservation. Now, I haven't dug into the details, and maybe they have other plans for bringing those folks up as well. But at least some of the people who work there are like, hey, what about us? And I don't know what other departments are affected by that either.
We had a caller on Tobler's show, and I asked Senator Rowden about it. To me, conservation, again, I'm not a lawyer, but somebody who's watched it for 30 years, I don't think conservation directly would be eligible. That said, generally what happens is on a proposal like this, the commissions that oversee places like that, and they have run by a 4-member commission, usually will go and implement it. But that's going to be up to the conservation department. The other thing, we've had questions, will MU healthcare workers and will somebody ask with the Mizzou football coaches, will they be eligible for the raise? The answer is no.
And this matters because and man, you add up just here in mid-Missouri, and I'm thinking, so if we go to Montauk, kind of like Osage, Pulaski, and Cole, and Callaway, and all these counties, how many, just in Cole County alone, almost 15,000 state employees, they were getting a raise. So, well, I'm not getting a raise. Well, that's more money, ideally, into the economy with the understanding, yeah, I know 8.7 it barely covers what Joe's done to us.
Yeah, I mean, the rule in my house was always you don't want to try to go to dinner on a state payday because every state payday you drive down Missouri Boulevard and every dinner place is packed. Right. It's a huge influx to the entire local economy.
It is, and that's absolutely right. And they're packed, and there's a wait and a long wait for that. The only other thing I'd point out, Brandon, about the people that are texting about I-70 and they're concerned about the rural roads. Certainly, those are legitimate issues, and hopefully we can get the governor on to talk about that. But there was a plan in 1992. MoDOT did promise this state that every 2-lane highway that had a population of 5,000 or more would be 4-lane. That was the Ashcroft-Griffin plan. We called it the Farm Bureau plan, 15-year highway plan, had all sorts of different names. A lot of that got done, not all of it, and we still have a stretch. California, Missouri are tipped into Sedalia. It is not 4-laned. That is a dangerous stretch of road, and that's the stretch in our audience, in our listening area, that needs it probably the most, and those lawmakers want that done.
So I guess the good news is the increased gas tax is going to pay for those improvements on rural roads?
The gas tax would improve. There's also, they've got the record surplus. But he did not, even in his budget blueprint, really spell out where that would be. That we'd need him or Patrick McKenna to tell us specifically what they're, and I don't know what rural roads they're referencing, but that would be that.
Thanks a lot, Brandon, for not helping fix the highway where I live.
That's right.
Selfish.
And I do want to apologize. You ain't got my tax money for fixing any roads. I got my refund on that gas tax. $15.36.5.
And was it worth the headache you went through?
Yes.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I would have thought you said no, honestly.
No, for real. Really, because...
Are you still keeping your receipts?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Really?
Because I'm going to get $30 this year.
I was going to say, weren't you disappointed with the amount? Is that what I'm thinking of?
I was kind of surprised because I thought I had more gas, or I thought I bought more gas than that, I should say.
A man exaggerating.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
It was like... It was this.
Thought it would be so much bigger.
And during the speech, if you guys noticed, of all the guests, congressmen and Supreme Court, the governor, all the statewide elected officials, the person that by far got the loudest ovation during the speech yesterday before it was the Director of Revenue, Wayne Wallingford. By far.
Yeah,
it was interesting.
Which is like the least favorite department. Least.
Former lawmaker, they know him, but man, they really like the guy.
Yeah, the $15 was worth it. I don't want to be cheesy or sound holier than thou, but the principle of the thing. I'll go back to the Affordable Health Care Act.
I was going to say just like that principle, right?
That principle. Listen, I stood on my principles. Almost $2,000 that that I got dinged for because I canceled my health care insurance because the federal government told me I had to do it. And yeah, the $2,000 that I eventually had to cough up was worth it, and I do have health insurance now.
But the tax phases in, and so it was $15 last year, but presumably it's going to be even more this year.
Yeah, it'll keep it'll keep going up. So I'm sorry that I ain't helping to fix the roads. When you're driving down Missouri Boulevard, really any thoroughfare, I think like especially like Providence Road in Columbia, maybe not compared to like 54 or the highways, but when you're in the left-hand lane and there's somebody that's going slow, and I mean going slower than the speed limit, all of a sudden I become a traffic cop. I'm going to fix this situation. I will lay on that horn.
Do you really?
No.
I was going to say, that doesn't sound like you.
You'll just get so close to them that they will know that you want to lay on your horn.
I don't do that either. I'm exaggerating. What I do sometimes, like if there's somebody who's speeding up and they're being a moron in traffic and like they want to, I will speed up so they can't get in front of me. And I know it's probably dangerous and law enforcement would cringe that I say that, but I get so frustrated. As a very accepting person, I get frustrated with people that...
A little road rage?
It's weird. There's not much in life that sets me off.
So I knew someone who... There's not much in life that sets you off, really.
Traffic, Columbia Public School District, and hypocrisy.
So I knew someone who was driving between California and Jeff City in that area, and they had a little bit of road rage, and they were sick of somebody driving slow in the left lane, so they passed on the right and did a little gesture as they passed. They were wearing a company hat, and said person just happened to be a state rep, and called the company or the owner of the company, and
I remember.
Got in a little bit of trouble.
I remember that story off the text. Brenda, your conversation about cars and basically women in cars. All I can say is bring back auto mechanics in high school and just have a basic check the oil, how to change a flat tire, how to check the engine light. I would completely agree with that. And Stephanie has uncovered a list of things that we should be doing in high school again.
I think we should put it out to the Wake Up family and we should go through it tomorrow. But yeah, there was a tweet and it said subjects that should be mandatory in schools, and on that list was car maintenance. Another one, public speaking. But we should have people tell us what they think.
And we should do that on a Feel Good Friday. And I think, by the way, more money for public education on a higher level. I disagree with that from yesterday's State of the State. In college, let's teach these kids the Constitution again, please, especially. And I don't know how they cover it in the journalism school. If you go to Mizzou, if you go to any public university, make them learn the Constitution again. They study it in the third grade, and they've forgotten it by the time, and then they get brainwashed, I believe, in these public institutions. Teach them the Constitution again.
Yeah, I mean, I think I spent like an entire year like calculating the volume of like cylinders, like geometry, right? And I can't put my light bulb in my taillight. I mean, car maintenance would have been such a better class than geometry.
Coming up just a few, so we'll do that tomorrow. Things that should be taught in high school. And as we're on the theme of traffic here in mid-Missouri, there is a traffic law, not here, but in South Carolina, that could probably fix road rage. Maybe. I'm exaggerating. We're going to do that here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. 5 minutes from now, 93.9 The Eagle.
DHSS estimates that 75% of maternal deaths are preventable with at least one meaningful change to treatment, whether directly to the patient or through the provider, community, or healthcare services.
As we were all hanging out here at the radio station yesterday, I was chatting with Randy Tobler, host of the Randy Tobler Show, weekdays, 4 o'clock. He had some interesting comments as it related to the governor in those comments. He had an interesting thought, and Tobler's going to be joining us at 8:10, and I would stick around for that because it turns out he's also a doctor who specializes in maternal health care, and I'm trying not to use he's an OBGYN. Anyhow, welcome into the show.
What? Does that weird you out?
It does.
Why?
I don't know, because I'm weird that way sometimes.
I've heard you talk about proctologists before.
But that was because my proctologist was a former Mizzou basketball player, and he had huge hands. And
Oh, my gosh.
John, there's John Marsh, producer Hannah, Stephanie Bell. I like John. You like this law? There's a law they're proposing and you might be thinking right now, yes, I would love, if you're in your car right now, maybe this is happening to you right at this very minute. There's somebody in the left-hand lane and they're going slow. What do? Well, you can honk or cuss under your breath, but that's not fun. I don't want to get in my head because of traffic. That's not an important thing at that moment. I think it is. I love this law that they're proposing in South Carolina.
Apparently increasing fines
If you're
for left lane slowpokes.
So if you're driving slow, so a Senate subcommittee there in South Carolina, they're saying, yeah, we're going to, so you can get fined. Can you get fined in Missouri for driving slow in the left-hand lane? Do you know, Marsh? I don't know either.
Yeah, $25 to $100. You can get fined for driving too slow. Now, I know, like, on some highways, I think I-70, it says, like, minimum speed.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, why? You know, I'm like, I should be able to, you know, as long as I'm not.
Government mandates.
Yeah.
Why do I have to drive at this minimum speed? That's BS, man. The government and their mandates.
Right. And half the time, I'm stuck in traffic and I'm going way below the minimum speed.
What about this? South Carolina says, so we'll fine you for driving slow in the fast lane. You're impeding traffic, causing backups. So we'll pull you over on the side of the highway and cause more problem because people see the flashing lights.
Right.
You slow down, you got to move over, and of course you rubberneck anytime you see the red and blue lights on. You got to, so that'll help the flow of traffic. Coming up here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. So Tobler is here. Some more highlights from the State of the State address. Oh, and I wanted to remind folks, Brad Trinago, longtime Wake Up Mid-Missouri family member, now does a lot of stuff with Mizzou sports. Brad Trinago is such a cool story. Number one, he's just a good human being, good family man. Always voice of the Lady Tigers. He's doing more of the halftime stuff for Mizzou football and men's basketball, and that's what he wanted to do in the years that I'd known him. That's what he wanted to do. Man, he's doing it now. I love this guy. It's his birthday today. So if you know Brad Trinago, make sure you wish him a happy birthday. Coming up, some more of the highlights. Yesterday's State of the State as it relates to how it's going to affect you. We're going to get into that coming up at 8:10 here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Good morning.
While the federal government tried to solve an inflation problem with more spending, we got to work creating jobs and securing business investments. When the coffers are full from a booming economy, growing business, and job creation, we don't spend for the sake of spending like we see in Washington, D.C. We spend what is necessary for our growth, for the future, and put money back into Missourians' pocket where it was earned and where it belongs.
Were those those were some shots.
One of my favorite lines from yesterday, for sure.
And because he's true. We don't spend for the sake of spending, and you can see what the federal government has done, and you can see the problem it has caused Americans. I think some of the important things from the speech, pay raises for state employees, you think almost 15,000, just in Cole County, but in all of mid-Missouri, employee pay raises, even if you're not a state employee, that's going to benefit the more money being pumped into the economy, I-70 widening. And I thought the other thing that was really interesting, because I have a tendency to forget about this sometimes, trying to help facilitate more opportunities for parents. For example, daycare is the one I think. As a matter of fact, they recognized a local daycare provider, very popular in Jefferson City. Because you say, hey, go get a job. Okay, I got a job. And it's kind of a good paying job. But now I got to find daycare.
And, you know, because daycares are scarce, it can be really expensive for people. And I was talking to a European colleague at one point, and they said, oh, over here in Europe, our taxes are like in excess of 50%. It would be hard to show up to work every day knowing more than half of what I was getting paid was going to the government. It can be the same way with daycare. When you're looking at, should I go get a job or should I stay home? Why would I work every day if 70% of what I'm taking home is going for my child care? That's hard.
Well, in to your point, Branden, in Stephanie's absolutely right. By the way, the daycare provider was Sharon Winton at Discovery Place, but the investment would be $78 million in a child care subsidy. It would allow them to earn a pay increase and would also allow them to support their workers. This very issue and transportation were discussed at the Ready Board meeting last week. Route B, they've got people that want to work at those plants. They have children, and they don't have a vehicle to get there.
Yep. So I thought that, and then kids that are in high school that maybe don't want to go to college, what can we do to help them put them into the workforce even quicker to ultimately be of benefit of us? Some of the big things I thought that were important. Randy Tobler hosts the Tobler Show weekdays 4 o'clock here on the radio station. We're all sitting around, hanging out, watching, listening to the speech, commenting. Governor Parson talked about the mortality rate, especially amongst new moms here in the Show Me State. You kind of had an interesting take on that. What was that?
Well, you know, this was a thrust that really was born on the wings of a report that came out last August looking at the experience of Missouri's moms and the terrible mortality among Missouri's pregnant women and after they deliver. And it showed that we were around 44th in the country. And you know, the governor mentioned that, and he really, I think, challenged the legislature to say, we got to take a look at this and do something. Now, you know, what's interesting then about that, Branden, is that the time period that they looked at in this study was from 2017 to 2019. And that is when Missouri Medicaid expansion occurred, and that was tied to bringing in the insurance companies to, quote, manage the care, just like people have managed Advantage Medicare plans. Well, this was Medicaid for largely pregnant women and kids. And it's funny that about a large amount of payment goes to these very, very profitable companies. United Healthcare, Anthem. There was another company at that time. They let a contract every year. Bottom line is, this is when it went from the state of Missouri paying people who provide care to shuttling it off for pregnant women, largely to these companies. And so I don't know whether this is a correlation that makes causation or not, but I suspect that there's some things there that may be going on. I was buoyed, though, by the fact that in terms of addressing this problem, some of the biggest reason in this report that came out, and this was from the Pregnancy Associated Mortality Review Board that was commissioned, the biggest reason for preventable deaths was mental health. And so the fact that the governor is really emphasizing that, hopefully the legislature will follow. I think there'll be some ripple effects under the maternal mortality, but there's some specific things that need to be done. And hopefully the insurance companies will let go a little bit of their profits and spend a little bit more on taking care of those moms.
Am I correct in deducing from what you just said about the mortality rates with moms, it's not because of poor health care, it's not because of lack of training, but it's kind of like Dr. Lena Wen, the Washington Post columnist and the go-to doctor for CNN, talking about, hey, all of a sudden we have to have some intellectual honesty about these COVID deaths. CNN saying, we have severely overcounted COVID deaths because we're saying people died, the differentiation, because of COVID or they died with COVID. And so is that kind of the same thing with the mortality or okay. Randy Tobler, host
I think we can believe the statistics, and so in that sense it's different, but you're right. I think that the problem is not necessarily the fact that when a patient comes for care that the doctors and the nurses and the hospitals and the facilities aren't capable of that. Often it's what led to that problem. And many of these deaths, actually, Brandon, they're called maternal mortality. It really happens after the birth of the child, sometimes due to cardiovascular reasons. And there's some ways to address that with remote monitoring and keeping in contact with these moms, making sure they get the visits and can show up to visits. Sometimes they don't have transportation. So you see, there's a lot of social issues, and I just am. I ruffle a little bit, and I guess I get a little defensive about it when I guess one of the implications that could be made about it is, well, what are you doctors and hospitals doing out there, you yahoos? Well, I think we can look at some other things. We can look at some psychosocial issues, some mental health issues, especially substance abuse. Domestic abuse is a big deal. And once we get a handle on some of those upstream effects, the system is perfectly capable of taking care of moms that have complications, but we have to know about it and prevent a lot of these things that are really not core medical reasons.
Randy, Dr. Tobler, there was a proposal that was briefly mentioned by the governor yesterday. It has not received hardly any media attention, but it caught it grabbed my ear when he said it. He basically is proposing $3.5 million to increase the number of youth behavioral health liaisons around the state. What the governor says, it will fund 27 liaisons to help youth in crisis receive the treatment they need. So he didn't give a lot of details. Number one, is that enough money for the issues we're having? And number two, are the primary issues these youth are dealing with, is it drugs? Or when he says behavioral issues, what does he mean by that?
A lot of times these youth that are troubled come from families that are troubled. I mean, we all know that the best chance you have in life is to have a nuclear family, a mom and dad there to look after you. And so, there's relational issues that then often result in people self-treating and taking risk. I mean, youth are not only, confused, anxious, uncertain about where they're going in life, and then they've got an uncertain social situation, and they're risk takers at that stage too. So you put all that together and you make drugs available to them, or alcohol or whatever, and you can see how that then is a toxic potion. And of course, when those filters are taken off, it's easy to get pregnant, and I think we see a lot of that with teen pregnancy. I see case after case after case of just sad situations with girls and guys getting together when they really shouldn't be, and then you got a pregnancy, they want to have their baby, but by the same token, the resources are not there. And boy, if we could, and certainly we don't want to push abortion, that's not the point of this, but we've got to get upstream from this and provide, I would like, instead of a youth liaison, what I'd like to see is a more robust, if they have in mind a big brother, big sister program to take the place of an absent mom or dad. To me, I've seen those programs be very helpful. My daughter was involved with one of those situations in Colombia, in fact, as a big sister. Fantastic difference that those people can make. So it's all going to be in how it's rolled out, but it's a good idea. Is $3.5 million enough? Probably not. There's a lot more cases than that.
Thank you, Randy.
All right, Randy Tobler, host of the Randy Tobler Show, weekday afternoons, 4 o'clock here on the radio station. Before we let you go, any other big things? Obviously, pay raises, state employees, the I-70 thing is big. A lot of great questions from our audience this morning at 874-9390, like, hey, I-70 is great, but what about these rural roads? And I guess that might take, they're collecting that money from the increased fuel tax.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've got to have good infrastructure to bring the business that the low tax environment and the otherwise friendly business environment brings. And so you have to have transportation and distribution channels. Yeah. You have to have a workforce. So the fact that he's really emphasizing those core things that are important to business, assuming those get ratified, is a great thing to see. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask you talk about the infrastructure and roads because I want to get people, well, what do we just make I-70 a toll road? And I want to say, hey, great idea. But then there's something called reality. And the reality is you're not going to make I-70 a toll. One of the busiest thoroughfares in the entire country for semis and goods. I agree. Hey, great idea. User fee, whatever you want to call it. The reality is it wouldn't. It just won't happen. So.
You know, for the state workers, I've had a lot of texts. You've gotten calls or texts on it, too, about people in the Department of Conservation, people that work at the University of Missouri or MU Healthcare that are not going to be included as best we can understand. And they're a little bit worked up over that because they consider themselves state employees. So maybe that'll be changed in the legislation. We'll have to watch.
And I know it's early, but I do always like to ask kind of what you might have in store today on the Tobler show starting at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, Zach Smith, the legal fellow, our legal eagle on the show that visits us weekly, will be on from Heritage to talk about the latest in the Biden Gate, Garage Gate scandal and see what his thoughts are and the way that's evolving. And then Susan Pendergrass from the Show Me Institute will be with us to talk about education. That's going to be a hot topic in this session.
Yeah. And Randy, I do take a little bit of exception with something you just said as it relates to Biden with the garage thing. I think it would behoove you to be fair and remember the garage was locked, okay? So
that's right. Yeah, I know.
Too hard on him.
And I keep waiting for you to report on that midnight raid that happens in the early morning on his residence. I just, I'm listening. I'm waiting.
John Marsh, have we added to the tally this week? We've got a dashboard in our studio, Randy, that John's been keeping track of, and remember the COVID dashboard? Oh, my God, look at the number of people that died today. Ding. John, how's the scoreboard today on uncovered classified documents? Did we add to it today? Thank you. Tobler, we'll look forward to seeing you in here at 4 o'clock this afternoon.
Hey.
How angry do you think KJP will get today? She sounded angry yesterday over the documents. She said, see you tomorrow. They asked a question. Yeah, I mean, she was fired up.
John Marsh, a lot of folks may not know this because he's been doing journalism for all these years here in mid-Missouri, some 30 years covering parts of mid-Missouri, covering the Capitol. John Marsh does a great Beavis and Butthead impersonation. and also a really good KJP impersonation. One more time. Can you take us out with your KJP impersonation? I love it.
Clip of the week.
I'm picking you winner of the week tomorrow, 8:35. Feel Good Friday. Coming up, Morning Bell Business News. A little twist only Stephanie Bell can give you. What do you got?
I've always liked Flo Rida, but I didn't know I was supporting him by drinking this drink that I have been drinking this morning.
You might be supporting Flo Rida, too. That story coming up.
Do you even know who that is?
Nope.
Last day of the rest of my life. I wish I would have known because I didn't kiss my mama goodbye. I didn't tell her that.
Good morning, 8:26. Time for the Morning Bell. Business news, little twist only Stephanie Bell can give you.
Well, if you were in the club in like 2000, 2010, you would be familiar with a guy named Flo Rida. And he's got a big payday coming, but not for his really great rap music. So he's a rapper. He was awarded $82.6 million in a lawsuit against Celsius, which apparently I am drinking one of these today. It's like an energy drink.
If you're watching on our YouTube channel, which you can do anytime you want, on our Facebook page or on our YouTube channel, which is Wake Up Mid-Missouri. People put it up on their smart TV at home, or we got somebody from Cleaners called, I put you guys at the front desk at the Cleaners. People will come in and pick up the dry cleaning, and there, boom, there's Wake Up Mid-Missouri on our TV. You'll see Stephanie is drinking the Celsius. It's kind of like a spritzer. It's got a little bit of booze in it, a little bit of fruit flavor.
No booze, just some caffeine. So Flo Rida was a investor early on in the company and did an endorsement deal when it wasn't very big, and now it blew up. He said, hey, I want my 1% of the company. I want what I got, what I signed up for. And they're like, oh no, like the success was after you. And he was awarded $82.6 million, big time money. And I think we're going to be seeing more of these with the rise of like content creators and influencers. There's a really hot, like somebody who's very popular on TikTok right now. Her name's Alex Earl. She's like totally blowing up. She's all over the news. And she's reportedly being paid like $70,000 for a single video posting by brands. That I think folks, when they, we see the things with athletes like NIL and all these like, brand endorsement deals. And I think as that industry kind of blows up, we're going to see more of these folks saying, hey, you know what? You can't take advantage of me. If your company blows up because of my personality or my endorsement, I'm going to hold you to the contract terms that we initially agreed to.
Incidentally, the what some of these influencers are making as an old, 52-year-old white guy laughing a couple of years ago at this is really a huge thing. And I want to tell you this. This is something actually that Wake Up Mid-Missouri can offer your business. You could call our front office and say, hey, I want Stephanie Bell to be an influencer for my business here in Mid-Missouri. Producer Hannah could do it for you, too, I think. I don't mean to speak for you, Hannah.
Yes.
Okay, but that's things. They can do that stuff, and you could call the radio station. They can be influencers for you, this product. This wine spritzer that Stephanie is drinking this morning.
Celsius, if you're listening. You should break up with Flo Rida, and I will be your girl for $82.6 million.
And Marsh could do it for you too. I don't think he'll charge $82.6 million, but
Branden can also do it.
They can do that stuff for you when you call the Zimmer Radio Group.
And hey, if you're watching the market, futures are down this morning.
Coming up, the Chiefs legend, trophy missing for 40 years. Find out how it was uncovered, how it's been found. And I think we might get into our mailbag this morning, too.
Reading the engraving on it, it was instantly obvious that it belonged to the late Len Dawson. It was given to him in 1976 as part of an appreciation trophy. The inscription actually reads, "For meritorious service in pro football."
Man, that is the chief of police, Lee Summit, chatting with Fox 4 Kansas City. Great story, as it has to do with Len Dawson, legendary Chiefs quarterback. Chiefs getting ready for their AFC playoff game coming up this weekend. Len Dawson. How cool was Mr. Len Dawson, Marsh? Like, this guy, like, in the halftime, in the halftime of a game, he'd go in and do some one-arm push-ups while smoking a Marlboro Red while doing shots of whiskey straight from the bottle. That's how cool. I might be exaggerating a little bit. But apparently years ago, and you heard the chief there talking about he got this trophy for meritorious service and got the trophy back in the 70s. And apparently since the 80s, this trophy had gone missing, and it's been recovered. And apparently this trophy, just like in the back seat of the car, this trophy been missing for 40 years, found in Lee Summit, Missouri, in the back of an alleged thief's car. That's a crazy story.
It is. I mean, and whether he's an alleged thief or not, he had the stolen goods. So his defense attorney's going to have a hard time.
But see, Your Honor, he was in the back of the car. He was right there.
The interesting thing, and Branden set it up really well, he played at Purdue, and they call it the Cradle Quarterbacks. Bob Greasy came there, and he was extremely popular, phenomenal broadcaster, and so much. And then for maybe 35 years, he was a sports director at KMBC Channel 9. I certainly remember watching him on there. But Branden, I don't know if you remember, he also did national games for a period of years on NBC, and he worked with Jack Buck on NBC games for a couple of years. I know at least in the maybe 85, Sunday afternoon, it might be the Chargers playing the Raiders, but I'd turn it on every once in a while, and it would be him and Jack Buck. And God, they were fabulous.
They were good together. You know why? Because they were I don't know if they were friendly. I assume they were friendly in real life. Doesn't necessarily mean they'd go bowling together in the bowling league on Friday nights, but they told the story of what they were seeing unfold, and they were both obviously Buck, very gifted storytellers, and Len Dawson too. I've been reaching out to Jacksonville media, trying to find somebody to come on. Hey, getting ready on a Feel Good Friday. We're getting ready for the Chiefs and Jaguars.
Got somebody.
You've got somebody from Jacksonville?
I can get someone who used to work here that is a main reporter in Jacksonville, and he worked here at the Eagle. His name is Joe McLean.
From ABC 17.
He started as an intern when I worked at Channel 17 and ended up here.
Yeah.
I haven't asked him, but I know he'd love to come on, and he is just a wonderful man.
How cool is that? Joe McLean spent a lot of years at ABC 17, did some stuff here. Now, I would love to have him on tomorrow.
What I think is funny is, Branden, did you work here at the same time as Joe?
Yeah.
And Houseworth did not, yet Houseworth was able to put the connection together.
Well, he and I actually stay in touch. I haven't talked to him about this, but he was really involved in that Urban Meyer reporting, if you remember, and he's done a really nice job down there. I know he would love to come on, He actually taught journalism, too, at the university for a little bit.
I'd like to see if there's anybody in Jacksonville that's legitimately saying, because I get it, you got to pull for the home team. Sure. You got to be the Chamber of Commerce. I get that. But I wonder if there's anybody in Jacksonville that's legitimately giving them a chance against our Chiefs this weekend.
And here we go. Long outlet to Black. He catches, launches at the hole. Missouri wins it, 79-76. What a ball game.
What a fun game last night, and not that we're talking sports here, but the number of people from the what do you do after the governor gives a State of the State speech? How do you celebrate?
You go to the Mizzou game.
You fall off the stage.
It was such a fun night. There was, last night at the game, the crowd was great. The students were great. Obviously, the gameplay was great. But, saw a lot of elected officials, saw a lot of folks from Mizzou. And, I think being right here in mid-Missouri, sometimes you lose sight or you don't fully appreciate the impact that the university has on a statewide level, and so it was nice to just talk to local business leaders and other elected officials about, how important the University of Missouri system is to our state.
I saw some cool pictures of the governor. I forget who he was sitting next to, but he had the radio headset on and looked like he was getting ready to, do play-by-play for the Mizzou game courtside. I thought that was really entertaining.
Well, that was Chris Gervino.
Yes.
And Kelly Jones actually reached out to me and was trying to get in touch with Mike Kelly, and I got her in touch with Chris. Obviously, I don't get to talk to Mike as much, but Chris did the interview. But if you listen to that interview last night, the governor, he would just... He just sounds like he is refreshed. He could have probably talked, an hour. He really wanted to talk about the game. Chris wanted to ask him about I-7. He wanted to talk about basketball. But he did say on the radio broadcast the I-70 work would start here in Columbia. And I texted Chris Trevino and said, that's great stuff. He did not say that during the State of the State. So that was a good interview.
With his little headset on and sitting courtside, it really did look like he was about to announce the basketball game.
I think he wanted to. He sounded like he wanted to do some play-by-play.
Maybe that's his next career.
John, you know who I'd like to see if Governor Parson did do play-by-play for a Mizzou basketball game or a Lincoln University basketball game? Have like Dolly Parton as his color person. The two accents between the two, I would love it. That I would pay to see.
Letters.
Good morning.
I get letters.
Welcome to Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Time for the mailbag.
So many letters.
We don't get any letters.
A whole bunch of letters.
We get texts, Facebook messages.
I'd even read mail from a cow.
And you never know when your text might be included in the Wake Up Mid-Missouri listener mailbag. I want to highlight this. We were bragging earlier on Brad Tronago, longtime member of the Wake Up Mid-Missouri family, and I have so much respect for this guy. His family unit, his core values. I've always respected the guy, and I probably did not tell him that much when he was here, but just a lot of admiration for the guy. What I really admire him for is he said, man, I want to do more stuff for Mizzou. I want to do more stuff for Mizzou. And, of course, for the longest time, he'd already been the voice of the Mizzou Lady Tigers, and now he's doing stuff for football and all that. And I miss having him as part of the show. Mentioned that it was his birthday, and he's celebrating a birthday today. So if you happen to know Brad Tronago, wish him a happy birthday. And I sent him a text that, hey, man, happy birthday. Hope you and your family as well. His response, I'm going to put this in the mailbag because it's beautiful. It's Brad. Here's his response. Thanks, Brandon. Family's all good. Hope all is well with the Wake Up Mid-Missouri crew and that Hannah and Stephanie have their shoulders covered up.
Oh.
Brad.
Point.
Hashtag right to bear arms.
Right. We got an interesting text about our left lane slowpoke article, and we were talking about I think it's South Carolina, where they're proposing to increase the fine for folks who drive really slow in the left lane, and we were like, I wonder if that's already in Missouri, and our listeners were like, yeah, it's this statute right here, and it doesn't specifically mention the left lane, but it does say, and I'm looking at it now, if you want to look it up, it's section 304.011, and it regulates the slow speed. And it basically says, yeah, you can't drive too slow on the highway, and you can't impede the movement of traffic. And it's a Class C misdemeanor, which apparently, and I am not a criminal law lawyer, but apparently could be punished with a $750 fine or 15 days in jail. I might be wrong on that, but anyway. But yeah, it's saying you have to go 40 miles an hour on the highway unless something else is going on. So.
And I wonder, and I'm not an attorney, I'm intimately familiar with some attorneys, and I'm kind of intimately familiar with law enforcement, but I don't know how this, number one, I wonder how often that's enforced.
Never.
And can I make a citizen's arrest in that situation? These are just...
Okay, Paul Blart, come on.
These are questions I have. But the other thing I wonder, let's say you're in the speed limit, max speed suggestion is 70 miles an hour.
Not a suggestion.
It's 70 miles an hour. What if you're in the passing lane and you're going 70 miles an hour and You're driving from, let's say, Fulton, and you want to go to Herman and go to the wineries, and you're in that left-hand lane, and you're doing 70 miles an hour, the maximum speed limit, but people behind you want to go above the speed limit. What do you do in that situation? Because you're obeying the law. The people behind you are trying to break the law by going faster.
You slow down to 41.
Correct.
Oh, man.
You make it
That is so petty.
You slow down. I love that. Coming up, we'll do some leftovers. Then we're getting ready for the Gary Nolan Show. Then we're getting ready for a Feel Good Friday here on
Here's a big old serving of leftovers. Enjoy.
Before we open up John Marsh's refrigerator and see what we have in the way of leftovers, I want to mention this. If we don't respond to your text, we usually pride ourselves. We try to respond to every text we get. Sometimes it's just not possible. I don't think we're being rude. We're just we're trying between everybody here on the show. Sometimes we just can't get to this. I just want to mention that. Welcome in leftovers. Some of the things we did not get a chance to get to on the show today. Stephs, what's grabbing your attention?
Can we talk about how there are inmates on the loose?
Again or still?
Yeah.
I think they busted loose, I think, earlier this week.
Mm-hmm.
And this is almost southeast Missouri, kind of St. Genevieve area. And how did they get out?
Like by a door. Like they just
What?
Like a hole in the fence or something. So yeah, it's there's 5 of them apparently on the loose. Marsh, what do you got? I wonder, because we look at other towns around here. Columbia is a great example. I don't know of anybody else that has public bus systems besides Jeff City and Columbia, but a lot of folks get upset. Why do I have to subsidize that? And especially, and I don't. I know in some of these in Columbia, for example, I've never, maybe 2 people on a bus. I really just don't see the ridership that we continue to our taxpayers. Taxpayer money keeps paying for it. But I wonder, okay, what if we got rid of those bus systems, public bus systems? Like ultimately.
And we just paid for everyone's Uber. I think we'd be better off.
Yeah, by the way, I've got another great business idea. I've had a couple over the past couple of days. Aaron Hedlund from the Show Me Institute, financial guru, talked about if Aaron Hedlund had a baseball card, you'd have his picture on the front, you turn it over there, it'd be all his stats, all of his qualifications, worked in the Trump administration. He kind of liked the idea. I think another good idea that I've had, and this is
Didn't Trump already do that? Didn't Trump get a baseball card?
The
Like an
NFTs?
card?
Oh, yeah. Maybe not such a good idea. The other idea, Chuck Basye, who is suing the Columbia Public School District to get on the ballot. Everything we have heard would indicate that he's in the right, that their rules that they have as it relates to running for the school board can't supersede state law. This deals with time frames. And I think I've got a really good solution. Dean Klemker, I think, is the guy. Forgive me if I get that wrong. He's on the ballot. He's on the ballot Columbia Public School Board race. He dropped out. He said, I didn't know what I was getting into. So we told Chuck Basye this morning, here's what you do. You legally change your name to Dean Klemker. You're on the ballot.
You think you're so clever. I don't think CPS has a leg to stand on, and I think we're going to see Chuck Basye's name on the ballot. But,
And here's the other good idea I think I have. Your trolleys in Jefferson City.
Oh, boy. Now Steph gets to take business advice from you.
Yeah, no.
Oh, yeah.
You should make them available as Ubers. Somebody could get onto the Uber app. I want to ride from the work to the grocery store and to home, but I want it on one of those trolleys.
Well, they have, what is it? Is it Uber Plus where you get a bigger SUV?
Yeah, Uber X maybe. No, that's the cheaper one. Uber Black, I don't remember, but yeah, you can get a bigger
something like
one.
that. Like when you book the Uber, you can say, "Hey, I need a bigger vehicle."
Yeah,
that would just be an extension of that.
Quentin, text 874-9390. What about the Oats bus? I just wonder what would happen because people say, well, but and there are people that need transportation, people that don't have vehicles, whatever reason they need buses, public buses to get to doctors but what would happen if we quit doing that?
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's been a lot of criticism, and part of it is, the folks that need transportation a lot of times are hourly workers, and the buses don't run at the times that these folks have jobs. So the people who, need the services can't access them anyway.
So what if we said, you know what, we're not going to use taxpayer monies to pay for these public bus services. And then let's say, for example, somebody going to an hourly job, and I'll use the easy excuse of a fast food restaurant, and then that worker can't show up to the fast food restaurant and we know how short-staffed everybody is anyway, and you're there at the counter wanting your burger from Just Jeff's Burgers, but there's nobody to work it because they didn't have a way to get into work. And I know it's not my responsibility, but man, when I want that cheeseburger...
All right, Biden, calm down.
We got to feature this tomorrow. What did Biden do? Was it earlier this week?
It was yesterday, so I get what he was trying to do. He was posting a video on his Twitter account, just promoting small businesses. But in the video, he calls like a cheeseburger joint, and it shows him ordering a cheeseburger for lunch, and in true Joe fashion, it's just awkward. It's so awkward.
It's like he's singing Happy Birthday or something. So we might highlight. And tomorrow is a Feel Good Friday on the show. So we're going to be celebrating some of the cool things that are happening in the news. And we've posted this, and this is already on our Facebook page if you want to get involved with this now.
Yeah, I saw this great question on Twitter, and it said, what subject should be mandatory in schools? Particularly, what subject isn't? What did you not learn in high school that you should have? And it came up because I have a light bulb that needs to be put in my car, and it's sitting in my cup holder. And yeah, car maintenance. One of our listeners said, hey, car maintenance should be a subject in school that we should have learned.
That post is blowing up, by the way.
Go to our Facebook page. That's one of the things we're going to be covering tomorrow. Winners and losers of the week. Pastor Scott Wilson, the dude I dragged off the stage at the Governor Prayer Breakfast when I fell off the stage. He's going to fact check our story tomorrow morning at 8:10 here on a Feel Good Friday. Nolan's next. See ya.
Bye.